All right, guys, lab number 11. So sometimes you're stuck. Sometimes you have to use the pieces that you have in the truck and try and make it a certain circuit work. So in this case, we're going to try to invert our signal. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and change it from a normally open to a normally closed or vice versa. So a single acting cylinder is going to extend immediately once the air is applied to the circuit. Once the push button is pressed, the cylinder is going to retract. As long as the push button is pressed, the cylinder is to remain in the retracted position. Once the push button is released, the cylinder is to return to the extended position. Okay, so it's the exact opposite of what we were doing before, using a 3-2 and a 5-2. Normally, if we hit the button, that would extend the cylinder. Let go of the button, and it would retract the cylinder. We're doing the exact opposite, in that the cylinder is already extended as soon as we put power to the circuit. By pressing the 3-2, it's going to retract. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a 3-2 controlling a 5-2. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to cheat and we're going to block off one of the output ports of the 5-2 valve, and we're going to change the output of that 5-2. Let's take a look in the fluid sim. Alright guys, again, just to save a little bit of time, I put all the bits and pieces we need here on the board. So we got 3-2, a 5-2 pneumatically operated with a spring return, and we've got a single acting cylinder. So what we need to do is, we need this single acting cylinder to extend at rest. So remember, this is our rest state right here. So in that case, what we need is we need the air to come up to port number 1. And in the rest state, we have air going from 1 to 2. So all we're going to do is just connect up our 2 to this guy right here. Okay. At that point, let's take a look. It's going to show us that we have open connections, yada, yada, yada. Okay. But now we can see that once we turn this on, then as soon as the power is turned on, the air goes straight up and extends that cylinder. So now what we need is we need to have a signal coming in here in order to make it retract. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have the 3-2 bring that signal in. So let's stop this for 2 seconds. We're going to bring the power or the air from the 3-2. Looks good. And then we just need to bring a source of air. Remember to hover over this and then drop it in. It'll connect it up. And that'll be giving us our source of air for that 3-2. Excellent. Okay, we'll hit play now. We still have an open connection here, but we'll deal with that in a few seconds. Okay, so now we've got air going straight up. As soon as we energize the circuit, the single acting cylinder extends, and now when we hit this push button, it retracts. So it's doing the exact opposite of what we had the 5-2 doing before. Now the only issue is that you can see right here on port number 4, in the other position, that air is going to go from 1 up to 4, and it retracts the single acting cylinder, but let me just hit shift here. You can see that there's air just pouring out of this port right here. So I don't think you can do this while, yeah, I can't do that while you're in the simulation mode. So what we'll do is we'll hit stop, and all we need to do now is just block off the air on that port. In your tackle box, you're going to have little plugs that you can place into your ports. On the simulator, we're going to double click. Okay, that brings up a myriad of different connections we can have here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to block off that port there. Excellent. Okay, so that's the same as putting in a plug. Now when we go back to our simulation, it looks like, oh, I just have superimposed lines, okay? That's all right. Anyways, okay. There we go. So now we got air going to the 3-2. We also have air going to our 5-2. And now when we press this push button, it's going to give us the opposite output from the 5-2 than we expected, causing it to retract. And now we've blocked that port number 4 from having the air exhaust out with that T. Not with the T, but with the plug. Looks good, guys. So we've inverted the signal. Okay, we didn't have a circuit or a normally open 3-2 to make this work. So what we did was we just took our 5-2 and another 3-2 that's normally closed, plug off one of the ports there, and we can invert the signal that we had before. Excellent. Okay, let's take a quick look in the lab. All right, guys, lab number 11. This one's called signal inversion. This is where like you don't have the bits and pieces that you need to finish off a circuit, but you do have some components in the truck. So you can grab a couple of different components and you can invert the signal on the output. So for this guy, we're going to have a 3-2, and normally when we have this 3-2, it would send a signal right to the double action cylinder when we press that push button. So let's just get that in there. There we go. And so this is normally the way this 3-2 works, right? By pressing that button, then it extends. But we want to change the logic of this so that when we press the push button, it actually makes it retract. So as soon as we juice up this circuit, then it's going to cause that single acting cylinder to extend, and when we press the push button, it's going to make it retract. So we're going to send this into one of these 5-2s here, and we're just going to build this up as we go. So we need to feed this guy with, let's turn this off, donkey, let's not work with the pressure. So that is going to feed into number 1 here, okay? And I need this guy to do the opposite output. So when I press this push button, I need the air, let's see, the air's coming out of there at rest, right? Because the spring is having that air go from 1 to 2. So I need the opposite output of what we had before. I need to have that single acting cylinder extend as soon as I turn on the air. Ah, yes. Okay, so we've got this guy, and now when we press the push button, we need it to retract, doing the opposite or inverting the signal of what we had before. There we go. But there's an issue because we've got air pouring out of this port of the 5-2. Okay, well, we can remedy that. Inside of our tackle box here, you have some plugs, and we can take that plug and then push it in there and block off that port. Okay, so again, as soon as we put pressure to the system, then it extends, and then when we press this push button, then it's going to retract. Excellent. So we've inverted the signal, or we've changed the signal that usually comes out of this 3-2, just by taking another component and blocking off one of the outputs. Excellent. Okay. One safety note to take note of, you'll notice that we're putting this plug in here, and I only have about 25 psi, right? So again, don't be a donkey and put 100 psi to these boards. If you got 100 psi and then you just block, you're asking this to block that 100 psi, this could shoot out and take out somebody's eye. So again, do me a favor, don't be a donkey and put 100 psi to these boards. 25 to 30 psi is ample pressure. All right, guys, that's the end of lab number 11.